Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking. Hey, an actual review video after a long hiatus. You know, I am a board game publisher first now. It's just my life. And the video channel kind of takes a back street to a lot of things that I have going on. Hopefully that will change. I'm trying to carve out some time for me to do these things. And this is one of those videos. So I heard of Lords of Baseball when I was at Gen Con, and I talked to the designer Max, who's a friend of mine. I talked to the publishers Sean and Keith, both friends of mine. You can take that into your noggin as you watch this video, and I talk about how much I like this game. You can decide whether or not that has tainted the soup, if you will, in some way. But the reason why this game kind of spoke to me is, well, the theme, baseball. I am a huge baseball fan. I have always been a baseball fan. I played baseball in Little League and in Babe Ruth baseball until I was 15 years old, and then I played softball, you know, pretty much for about 2 decades, in my 20s into my 40s. And it's just something I've always enjoyed doing. I've loved baseball stats. I've loved the baseball pennant chase, the postseason, whatever. And one of the greatest memories that has nothing to do with my wife or either of my children has to do with the fact that I was in the right field stands, Game 7, 1991. When Gene Larkin hit his game-winning single to win Game 7 of the World Series. And made even more poignant now as I speak because I was sitting next to my stepfather, who is no longer with us, and we enjoyed that game. Just, it's one of those things. I'll always remember that moment. I'll remember the roar of the crowd. I'll remember just the insanity that happened afterwards, and just like what a special moment that was. And baseball gave my life that special moment of memory that can never be taken away. One of the things about being involved in the board game world is that, with some exceptions, there just aren't really a lot of good baseball games. I did a video for Stratomatic Baseball many years ago. Something I still play, something I still really enjoy. Philip Millman, if you know him, being the champion of baseball highlights, I enjoy that game as well. But one of the things I really like, there's a few computer games out there that are about like basically being a team manager, team owner, some sort of like a simulation process, and I like that. I like that idea of being the person behind the scenes. I mean, I play fantasy baseball as well. I mean, like, you know, rotisserie leagues or whatever. But I've always liked the idea of, like, this is my team and running them and having a farm system and all those things. There's some really good video games out there that, like, you can play solo and really enjoy, but I've never really found a board game that kind of simulates that experience. So that's where Lords of Baseball comes from. So when I saw it, I was intrigued. I got shown the game. I became more intrigued when I found out that it was from the bygone era of baseball, you know, like the 1920s and what have you. I became kind of sold on it, and I really wanted to play it. And so I played it, and I really enjoyed it. And I really think the game is a lot of fun. You don't have to be a baseball fan to like the game by any means. Though obviously theme brings people into games, and the mechanisms and the gameplay keep them. So I think that there's definitely a lot of stuff that go on in the game to get a non-baseball fan interested in the game and excited about the game. So just keep that in mind. I have a prototype. I'm going to show it to you now. I'm going to kind of go over a little bit of how to play the game, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you kind of my final thoughts and why I think you should probably own this game. All right, here we go. So this is Lords of Baseball. I'm going to go ahead and dive into how a round or a year of this game is played. You can play this game over 3 years or 7 years. That's not actual game time, mind you. 3 years is for like kind of a beginner or shorter game. 7 years for an epic experience. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what you see in front of you. Obviously, this is the main game board. There is a team wins track on the outside. The victory point track is here. As your team wins or loses games, you'll keep track of how many wins they have, and that will tie into your team quality and possibly victory points as well. There is a track to keep track of how many fans you have for your team at any given time. There are these cards here for the regular season deck. At the beginning of the regular season, you'll turn one card over as the game progresses 7 times to determine which team you play against. You might be playing against a person that's playing the game, or you might be playing against one of the game-driven teams over here. I'll talk about more of that when we get to regular season stuff. But it's kept hidden because as a card-driven game, you're going to have a hand of cards that you will use that you will determine like when you're facing said team, and like you're going to be picking one of those cards to use, and so you have to kind of plan ahead or decide which card is going to be used at any given time. And so certain cards you might want to save against another player, or want to play them against a team that isn't run by somebody else. So that's why it's kept secret. Each person gets 2 boards. One board is their stadium board. One board is their team board. The stadium board actually just is how you upgrade what you have. You can upgrade your field, your press box, your concessions, your bleachers, or what have you. All of these are going to affect your team in some way. A lot of these are going to affect how much money your team makes. Money is important, obviously, because you don't have money, you can't pay your players, you can't pay your team, what have you. If you ever are in a situation where you can't pay the money that's expected of you, you can take a loan token that if you still have this at the end of the game, it's worth -2 victory points. But if you can pay it off with $25, you can get +1 victory point. So just keep that in mind. There are those loan tokens. This is the player board. They're just giving you kind of a close-up. You keep track of your team quality, how many prospects you have, how many stars you have, how many regulars you have, the farm system, the front office, team manager, how much money you have. Also, when you're determining your wins and losses, there's a little matrix there that'll tell you what your record is when you go up against a team. So just kind of showing you that stuff. And each person will have that, and they'll use their markers to keep track of that as the game progresses. This is, as I said, the non-player teams, the teams that are run by the game themselves. At the beginning of the game, each year, you are going to give them a random token that are on the stack here that determines how many, what their team quality is that year, and how many wins they have. And those are going to determine, later on, when you determine at the end of the season how good your team is and how many victory points you have. That's going to matter a great deal. At the beginning of the season, or each year I should say, you're going to take one of these bonus cards and you're going to flip it over, and it's going to tell everybody what the goal is. In this case, it is the most regulars. The regulars are the non-star players that you have on your team. If you have the most regulars, you're going to gain victory points. And if you currently have or are tied for the most victory points, you'll get 1. If you are in the middle of the road, you gain 2. But if you're in last place, you're going to gain 3. And so you're going to put that out there on the board so everybody can remember that's what your goal is this particular season. That's what people are going to shoot for. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do spring training. And during spring training, you will get spring training cards. And like I said, I'm not going to dive super deep into this, but spring training cards, and in this case, I get 3, but I get a bonus one because my farm system is... Oh, I forgot to mention, each person at the beginning of the game gets a franchise card that will tell you what your beginning stats are for that season. It'll tell you how many media tokens you have, it'll tell you what your team quality is, and so on and so forth, your starting money, and so you can set up your team to begin with. So, and after that, you don't use the franchise cards anymore, they're just gone. That's just your starting levels. But anyway, my team has a farm system of 4, meaning I'm going to get an extra bonus. Spring training card. But what spring training cards do is, and they have all these different options, and you're going to choose one option during the spring. So each person's going to, in turn, you're going to pick one over, and they're going to pick one of these things. Now, some of these cards says no fan increase or no upgrade, but I could do a call up, which means like call prospect to regular, in which case then I could reduce the prospects in my farm system down 1, and then I could increase my regulars by 1. And so in each one of those things on your player board, you might notice there are these like victory point tracks here. So like having lots of prospects gives you lots of victory points. So it's something to keep in mind, where as far as things like that you want to keep track of, and you want to, so you gearing your team up or down as far as the team quality is good, because having more star players, having more regulars is going to give your team a better quality. But having lots of prospects is something that is actually going to get you victory points. So what do you want to do? There's all kinds like these push and pull levers, if you will. There's even like trades where it'll give you 2 options and you get to pick which side the trade is on. When you do a trade, it's with a neutral team. It's not with another player. You have to give something up to get something up. In this case, this one says you give up a star and you can get a prospect and $5, or you can give up a prospect and $5 and get a star player. You can pay $4 and you can sign 2 prospects, and if you want to, you can play a card for no effect. You can just say, I'm just not going to do anything this time. So each person will play their spring training cards, and they'll pick their options as far as those go. Some of those things were here's like the upgrade is on this one. I can upgrade a regular to a star. I can add 1 fan loyalty, if I use that card. So that's how you do spring training. After spring training is over, at this point, we'll go ahead and move on to the regular season, because spring training is done. And then the regular season, what we will do is we will get our regular season cards. Now, you go ahead and these are the series cards. And so you're just going to take 7 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can at this point, if you want to, you can spend media tokens that you have to gain another series card. I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to take the 7 that I have. These are basically kind of like events that you get to do. Here's one: roll 2 dice and add your front office value to the total, then add fans. And purchase up to 3 media for $3 each. If your stadium has a level 2 or greater press box, gain 1 fan, or gain $3. So there's all these kind of like little cool things that you can use when you're going to go into your series. Here's like writers home away from home. Gain a number of media equal to the level of your highest press box. Gain 1 team quality for this series only, 1 extra resolution die. And I'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But you're going to be doing those things as far as with each matchup you have. So in this case, what you're going to do is you're going to turn one of these cards over, and it says here, St. Louis versus Philadelphia. Now, as you can see, Philadelphia is this team that is being run by the game, and they have a team quality of 5. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is I have to roll 2 dice. 1 die will be designated for me. 1 die is going to be designated for the opponent. So I'm going to say the black die is for me and the white die is for my opponent. I roll these 2 dice. I got a 5. They got a 6. So they got a total of 11 for this particular series. I have a team quality of 8. And that means I have a 13. So I beat their team quality by 2. So once again, we go ahead and go to this matrix or what have you, and we would see here, like on the 2 there, I have a 12, and I win 12 games and I lose 10. So I would adjust my wins by that many. Now, before that game, before that die roll and all that stuff, I have to play one of these cards, and you have to play it. So like maybe this time I said I'm going to roll 2 dice and add my front office value to that total. So I'm going to take these 2 dice, and I have a front office of 2. So I'm going to hopefully get a good roll here, and I got a 7, meaning 9, and I get to add 2 fans. So I'll take, and I go up to level 3. So that would be been my event. So everybody will do that, and they'll do that. And in a lot of these cases, the players can just do it on their own. They don't have to do it one by one. Everybody can take care of it on their own. Now, then we go on to the next thing, and here we have New York versus St. Louis. So New York is being played by another player. So what's going to happen then is
Both of us are going to play a card. Sometimes the cards themselves, like this says here, like both you and your series opponent may immediately take one stadium action to either upgrade or innovate your bleachers. If either of you don't upgrade your bleachers, that player loses 1 fan. So sometimes the cards you play will be played by the opponent. If you played that when you're playing against a non-player team, nothing would happen. Obviously, for that, only you would be affected by it. And so you can play that. And then you, once again, you do the whole thing, figure out your team quality, if it has changed maybe, and then and now in this case, your opponent rolls a die, you roll a die, you figure out what's gonna happen, and then you go through the process. So you're gonna do that until you like basically to get through all of your 7 cards. Now you may have gotten more cards by using media tokens, which is fine. That just gives you more options. You don't get to play another series card during this time. So just keep that in mind, that you just get more options, if you will. Now I'm really fast forwarding here because we're not going through all 7 of these, and I'm not going to adjust everything to show all that. But when you get into the postseason, you will determine whether or not one of the players gets into the postseason. And mostly what you're doing here is you're just basically having the most wins is going to win the pennant for your division, and then that person gets to kind of have a little mini game, and what's going to happen is they're going to go to the championship. And when they go to the championship, they'll turn it over, and this will tell you what the total quality of that particular team that you're facing in the championship is. And then it has here where you're basically going to roll 1 die, and then to get a best of 7, so you gotta get 4 wins. And if you have less than a 17 of total quality or team quality, then you only win on 5 or 6. If you if you have a win on a 4 to 6, if you equal, and then win on a 3 to 6 if you have better then. And so, like, let's say I won and I have still have a team quality of 8, so I've got almost no shot. You can just roll a bunch of dice at once, so we can see how many wins I get here. Let's see here. Well, I got 2. I got 2 wins, so it's 2 and 2 right now. 3 games to go. I need 2 5s or 6s. Nope, I lost. But I had a thrilling series though, right? I made it go to 7. I was the underdog, but I lost the championship. But no big deal. Doesn't winning the championship is going to help you out a little bit, but it isn't the make all break all by any means. All right. So after the postseason is done, you will go to the finances section. When you get into the finances, this is when you got to pay for everything. And so you get income. You have an $80 base income plus $3 per fan, and you can discard media tokens this time for $5 each. Then you have to pay everybody. So on the chart here, you can see there's going to be money levels like for your star players. Like it'll tell you how much you have to pay for your star players. So if you have 4 star players, and this is going to be kind of tough to see, but you got to pay $50. Depending upon how big your farm system is, you got to pay that much. How big your front office is, you got to pay that much. How good your team manager is, you got to pay that much. So there's a lot of stuff you have to pay as far as that goes. Each of your prospects gets $1 each. Each of your regulars gets $2 each. Remember, if you don't have the money to pay them, you can take out loans, and you can't go bankrupt. You just have to take out loans to pay everything and get everything paid up. So make sure you finance your team well, right? I mean, you want to make sure that you do things well. Then I might as well show you, so the victory points are based off of, so like if you win the championship, you get a victory point. For every 5 prospects in your farm, you get a victory point. Pay cash, $20 for a victory point. That's like you can, and everybody can choose to do that if you will. So if you got a lot of money, you can pay for victory points at that point. Remember, that isn't saying that like you're buying wins. It's just you have a really good team. Your team's making money, and so that means it's a good team, and you get victory points if you wish to. And then how many wins you have, like between 0 to 76 is 0, and then so on and so forth. You get more victory points as far as that goes. So I mean, you can definitely see how, like, wins are important, but it isn't the only way to get your victory points. Now, finally, what you do here is you're going to go to the hot stove. And so hot stove, if you're in last place, you get to draw 2 of the hot stove cards, and the top of the hot stove has these events. And you get to pick one, and then that affects everybody. And it might not, but there might be some people that won't affect. So like Carpenters Union, for $2, each team may make one bleacher innovation. So or the Knothole Gang, all teams increase fans one level. Any team that doesn't have a bleacher upgrade gains one additional fan level. And so you can pick one of these, and then you can see how these will affect the other players, and then you pick one. And then, once again, what you're going to do is you're going to draw, just like in the spring training, and then depending upon if you have a good front office, you get more of these cards. And then, once again, they have these different things that you can do. You can trade, you can take stadium actions. I'll talk about that in a little bit. You can try to get a better manager. And there's other things like options and get media tokens and what have you. So there's all these things you can do, and each player will get to process those as you go. If you do try to get a better manager, there's a little chart here. The better you roll, and you get multiple rolls depending upon the card, you can get a better manager. So like, obviously 2 to 3, and so if you roll, oh, I got a level 2 manager. Well, I don't want that. I want to re-roll that. 9, okay, level 4 manager, I'll stay. Maybe I had 3 re-rolls and I'm going to stop there. I don't want to re-roll again. I'm just going to take the one that I got in that situation. The trades work exactly the same as with that you had in preseason. The biggest thing is upgrading your stadium. So there's all these upgrades, and they start like level 2, level 3, level 4, and so on and so forth. You can see that up in the top right there. You can't skip one of these normally. Like you level 2, then you can go from level 2 to level 3. However, with stadium actions, you can innovate, which means you can just get rid of one and you can skip ahead to the next one, right? So you can improve your press box. You got to pay the money, obviously, to do it. And sometimes, as you can see, those actions, whatever, allow you to do those on the cheap or whatever. But each one of those is going to affect you in some way. And the big thing is your bleachers and your concessions. If you can get your concessions or your bleachers up really high, you're going to gain more money. Because people are showing up and paying to come to your bleachers, and you can definitely see, and then for that matter, concessions. The more stuff you sell, the more money you make. But you can definitely see like the different color codings or whatever. Like this could be press box and bleachers. This can only be press box. This can only be concessions. This could be all 3. So it's pretty straightforward, and then you can just upgrade those things as you go. And that's definitely a way that you are able to improve your team, and also everything kind of just works together, right? You need money to do things. You need victory. You need wins to get victory points. You need money to get players to win games. So there's all these things kind of work together hand in hand as you're pulling the string back and forth. Lords of Baseball is a lot of fun. Plus, I really love the theme. I enjoy it immensely, and once you get kind of grok how a year works, it's really straightforward. And there's a lot of interplay between all the different players. There's evocative stories that come out as you play, as your team gets better or gets worse, and you tend to have not even so much like a storyline, if you will, but there is definitely a narrative that is created as you go through the different seasons. There's always be one team that comes from behind and gets that lucky championship like I almost did, and there's always that one sad sack team that just can't seem to put it together, and those are kind of fun stories that come out. But I'll talk about that more in my final thoughts.
All right, so there you go. There's a ton that goes on in the game that I didn't really do a deep dive into all of the different cards and all the different things that happen. But at its heart, it is a Euro game. It is with a little bit of randomness. There's some dice going on. I'll talk about dice here in just a little bit. But it is a card-driven game. A lot of my favorite Euro games are card-driven games. For example, like Campaign Trail, about the simulation of like the voting process and becoming president. It's a card-driven game. A lot of the war games I play are card-driven war games. And I like games that have multi-use cards. It's just a mechanism that I've always enjoyed. This card can do this, this, and this. What do I want to use this card for? What's the most opportune thing I can use the card for at this time? That sort of stuff. I really like that. And I like the fact that the process of each season kind of allows your team to grow and shrink, your stadium to grow, which and just continue to grow. So you can start as this like fledgling little team with this little like barnyard basically stadium that eventually grows into something really significant and amazing, especially when you play a 7-year epic game. I like that. Scott Nicholson once famously said to me in a game, he goes, "I like to get done with the game and then look and see what I've built over the process," and that's something I've also realized I really like that too. It's probably why I play all these like sim games and civilization games. You like to build something and like to see it grow and like to see it kind of be affected by the world and be affected by the situation, affected by the game, affected by the other players and what they're doing. I love the fact that it kind of obfuscates the path to victory a little bit. You'd think if, like, as I said, you'd think, oh, if I can just win 90 games a season, you know, I'll win the game. No, there's so many other ways you can get victory points that, like, yeah, winning games is going to get you victory points, definitely. But if that's all you focus on, chances are you're probably not going to win. You need to diversify. You need to think about other options. You need to think about other things that you can do to make that happen. So I like that. I like that about that game. When you eliminate that single path to victory, it makes the game way more enjoyable and makes the game way more approachable, especially for people that aren't really, you know, going to be huge baseball fans and what have you. So I think the designer and the publisher and the developers really did themselves a favor when it comes to taking the time to make sure that there was a diversification of victory point possibilities, and so you could chase after those different things. I mentioned the dice. So when you see dice in a Euro, there's a lot of times people are going to be like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to have my perfect little engine be destroyed by the fact that I didn't roll a 7, you know, or oh, I rolled poorly on 2 consecutive turns and now my team sucks, you know, that kind of stuff. Yes, there's dice going in there, but I think, in my opinion, dice needed to be added to the game to truly represent kind of the fact that you're playing baseball. As I said, you know, it's like, you know, a lot of baseball is just weird, random happenstance, things that you can't ever predict, you know, that like crazy things happen over a 162 game schedule. And the fact of the matter is that, like, if you got to like the championship series and this team, like, as you said, you show it, like, I was like, this team is super good and this team isn't that great, you know, what are the chances they're going to, you know, be able to pull out a victory here and win the championship? Oh, you know, if it was just straightforward, it's like you lose, move on. But no, you get to roll some dice and you get a chance, you know. I remember when you'd play Arkham Horror, you know, it's like it was way more enjoyable to be told you need to roll 3 6s on those 3 dice, or you're going to die, and be at least given the chance, you know, to roll the dice and try to get that, as opposed to just being said, you lose. You know, so, you know, just, I like the fact that there's just a little bit of dice action there. You can't just always guarantee yourself certain aspects of the game. You can't just guarantee you're going to get X, Y, and Z. You have to kind of leave it up to fate a little bit, and then react to that fate, and react to what you've gotten, and react to how the game has turned out, and then change your strategy, you know, build yourself up or down as needed from that situation. And I like that. And I don't think the dice are so intrusive that if you hate dice in your games that this is going to bother. I suppose if you hate dice 100%, dice suck, then yeah, you're not going to want to play this. But if you don't mind just a little bit of dice, it doesn't really bother you that much, not going to bother you at all. I guess ultimately it's one of those things where it's like, who's this game for? I mean, I think this game's for anybody. I think you could, I mean, obviously if you are a baseball fan, and if you are somebody who enjoys strategic Euro games, I think this is a must-buy. This is something you're going to want to have. If you have a group of friends that are baseball fans, this is something that you're going to want to play. Like I said, there's a heavy player interaction going on. Everybody's involved with each other the entire time. You know, so it's a game that can last a couple hours, especially, you know, when you're doing a 7-year game, but it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like the game flows really well, and the methodology of the game is very, very good. You know, and I also think that this is a game that, like, if you had it in your library, and you could get people that aren't huge baseball fans because of the fact that it is, if you strip it down, strip out all the theme, I mean, ultimately what it is, it's a bunch of different charts, it's a bunch of different levers and track markers and things like that you are going to be adjusting through the use of cards to have desired outputs. And for somebody who's just a strict Euro Engine person, then that's something that's going to appeal to them as well. Like I said in my introduction, the theme brings you into the game. It's the actual gameplay that keeps it on your shelf and keeps you putting it back on the table and unpacking it, unlike all the other games you have on your shelf that are covered in dust right now. I just want to touch on one last thing before I go, is that the fact that I really enjoyed the narrative storytelling of the game, the emerging story of the game. And I mentioned that, and I kind of went into it pretty well already, but that is one of the biggest sells for me with this game. It is that you're the plucky young team that manages to win despite all the bad news bears, if you will, stuff like that. Or it's like, oh, I'm the guy who just cares about my stadium and concessions and what have you, and I don't really care about the team itself, and so I'm all about having the place to go, but not having the actual team on the field, stuff like that. It's just like there's cool little mini stories that happen within the game that kind of help with the actual competitiveness and let's see who wins. As with a really, really good board game. A good board game is one that after you get done, win or lose, you enjoyed the story and you enjoyed the ride to get you to the end, and that's what this game does. So there you go. That's Lords of Baseball. Thanks for tuning back in to a review for the first time in months. I apologize that it's been so long. I'll try to get back on track. At the very least, do some observations of the board game hobby and kind of just maybe tell you about certain games I've been playing lately that I've really, really enjoyed. Maybe not big, giant, deep reviews, but just, tell you what I've been doing, how being a publisher is, and the RPGs I'm playing and stuff like that. So until next time, I'm the Undead Viking. You continue being the awesome person that you are, and we'll talk soon. All right, bye-bye.